Hello everyone. Today we're going to talk about the features of the sheep brains. So for the sheep brain, the sheep also has different lobes for its brain. Here is the frontal lobe. This would be the parietal lobe, the occipital lobe, and on the side would be the temporal lobe. There's also two hemispheres. So there's a right and a left cerebral hemisphere, and in between the two hemispheres there's the longitudinal fissure. Right here is the cerebellum, and in between the cerebrum, which is the brain, and the cerebellum, there's the transverse fissure. So we see the longitudinal fissure right here, and we see the transverse fissure right there. One more time, here is the frontal lobe, the parietal lobe, the occipital lobe, and right here would be the temporal lobe, and here is the cerebellum. Now the sheep brain also has those convoluted areas known as the gyri, and the grooves in between would be the sulci. So all of these would be the sulci. The cerebellum has also, if you cut it, it would be two cerebellar hemispheres, and it also has the crevices like the human cerebellum, which we refer to as the fovea, and this middle region right here is known as the vermis. The sheep brain also has the brain stem. So right here would be the midbrain, the pons, and the medulla oblongata. Here is the frontal lobe, the parietal lobe, and the occipital lobe. This white part right here is the corpus callosum. Inside here, there would be the lateral ventricle. Right here would be the third ventricle. And right in front of the cerebellum, right here, would be the fourth ventricle. And this canal is the cerebral aqueduct. So in these ventricles, the lateral, the third, and the fourth, there would be CSF, the cerebral spinal fluid. And if you take a probe and go inside of these ventricles, you would scoop out the choroid plexus. And the choroid plexus is what helps make the CSF. This region right here would be the thalamus. Right about here would be the hypothalamus. You see a part of the optic chiasm, part of the optic nerve right here. Back here is the pineal gland. You cannot see the pituitary gland from this image. Here is the white matter of the cerebellum, which we refer to as the arbor vitae because it looks like tree branches. And the brownish parts would be the gray matter. So this image, it's just labeling everything for you. And we've already talked about all of it. And just one more thing to mention is that the cerebral aqueduct right here is the passageway for the CSF to move from the third ventricle into the fourth ventricle. If we take a look at this inferior view of the brain, Here would be the midbrain. Right here would be the pons. And down here would be the medulla oblongata. So those are the three parts of the brainstem: the midbrain, the pons, and the medulla oblongata. Right here, this is where the pituitary gland would stick out. For the nerves, we can see the olfactory nerve, and this part would be the olfactory bulb. This one right here is the optic nerve, and you can see that it's crisscrossing right there. The other nerves are pretty hard to see, and so we're just going to stick with for the sheep with the olfactory nerve and the optic nerve. And you can see all of these dark lines, by the way, those are blood vessels residing in the crevices known as the sulci.